What's up, guys? Back with another episode of Tyler's Talking on the podcast there. Got a little tongue-tied there. I'm excited. It's been a little bit of time since we released one. It's summertime, so we're pretty busy doing some other things, as we have stated before. And the weather's been beautiful, so yard work, and I know Tyler P's had some side adventures with racing real cars and stuff. And then I've been working at my house, redoing a lot of stuff there. And we had this podcast planned for Wednesday, but the Bishops ended up keeping our star here.
The precious.
So we just said, we'll do a Sunday. So we are here now. We got, you can kind of see the top of the body there. There we go. We can hide it. But I'm sure we're all pretty familiar because we did a lot of posts on it now. This is the Tekno Buggy that we are doing the raffle for at the Beef Electric Shootout race. Me and Tyler P were just going to go over it real quick so you can get a close-up. Andrew and Manny did some killer photos of it.
Yeah, they came
the other
nice.
day. Should have seen the setup in here. They rearranged everything with the sheets and blacked out. It was like a full-on photo shoot. It must have been like 2 hours.
He was I saw the pictures, and when I saw Manny yesterday, I'm like, dude, those pictures came out great. You know, I'll have to have you over the house and shoot some of my vintage stuff. He's like, yeah, no. And he explained to me like what his setup is.
It's like everything was rearranged in here, and there's the black can't be over. Yeah, it was
and lighting and all that. I thought he just came in with like a black cardboard box with 3 sides, threw the car down.
Cardboard box and an iPhone. We'll take care of the rest of that in post.
I mean, all you need is a cell phone to be a professional photographer. So.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, or YouTuber.
But anyway, shout out to him because those pictures were pretty awesome, and a lot of effort went into those, and I'm sure there was a lot of effort post picture taking too, and whatever software they use for that. I'm not much of a photographer guy, so I don't know.
He said that he never posts anything raw. It's always refined.
I'm not gonna make a joke. All right. It was pretty awesome. So anyway, we got the buggy. We figured we'd talk about it, and I'm gonna hold the camera so we can kind of go through it, and you guys can get a close up under the hood. We can talk about it a little bit, so I'm going to grab you here, bring you around, find the mess in here. Alright, so the mic's going to change a little bit there. Tyler P, what are you doing? Alright. We have custom body, painted the same as Mayfield. You can see. Shout out to the Stick It One, J Concepts, A Main, Tekno, of course, Hobby Wing.
And the man himself for Ryan.
I was getting there.
Well,
Tyler P rushed me.
I'm eager. This thing is so cool.
So anyway, you get the body obviously in his scheme, which is pretty awesome. It's the new J Concept wing in the back there too. What is it calling those? Razor wings, I think they call them. We'll pop the body off here. Underneath, make it a little easier to hold here. We got the Hobby Wing setup. ProTech, is that a 170 he's got? Yeah, 170 TBL, awesome servos. Hobby Wing XR8. I don't know what KV motor we ended up with. Do you know, Val?
No, I'm looking for the numbers and I don't see them.
Oh, it's a 2200. I see it on the side here. 2200. Pretty nice wiring job, and the ProTech battery straps covering it, so I don't know what size we're working with here. Help me out with that, T. I got one hand. ProTech hooking us up. We got 6500 120C LIHV. Pretty nice setup, and of course the Tekno 2.1 buggy. I believe this also has the JC turnbuckles there, the blacked out ones. I don't know, maybe I can get the front ones a little better. Pretty adding a nice aesthetic to the car there, and I believe it has a ceramic bearings in it too.
Serious?
I believe it has a ceramic bearing kit.
Wow, that is full effort.
Obviously, I can't officially prove that in this video here, but I'm pretty sure that's what the
wild.
Bishops told me. But obviously built professionally. I'm gonna flip you guys back around so we can talk about it. So it's pretty awesome for them to do this and have it built, and Tekno, Mayfield, all those guys. So that was pretty sweet that they reached out. So we are raffling it off, and then proceeds obviously going towards to Beef, his charity there, and whatever he does with it. I'm not sure. Something about, I think, needing a new vehicle to get around because the one he has is not quite adequate. They're just kind of making it work. But we're selling tickets here, and Beef's pretty much here every Friday night selling tickets in his trailer, and then I think they have something set up online with that link in that post with those pictures that Manny took they were talking about. There's a link in there for the waffle. We gotta call it a waffle on there so Facebook doesn't yell at us. But I believe the tickets are $40 or 3 for $100.
Yep.
And I know you're like, well, $40 seems like a lot for a ticket, but honestly, two things. One, this is a lot of car, plus I didn't even talk about that over there, which is included with it. I'll bring that in a second.
Oh, no way. This
is a lot of car, for one. This is easily a couple $1,000, and then it's going towards Beef. So it's a donation and a raffle.
Awesome car, great cause.
Yeah, so it's really, the $40 on the ticket is going to a good thing, which is pretty awesome. And I forgot to mention this, another thing, ProTech helping us out, comes with this too, which is honestly arguably the best charger you can get that does not require a power supply. I think it does like 20 amps or 25 amps. That's a 25 amps per channel on that with the power supply built in and with 2 touch screens. It's a killer charger. It's a little on the big side, but that's because the power supply is built into the back of it. So it's really no different than carrying a charger and a supply. So shout out to those guys. So this is, aside from a controller, this is essentially a ready-to-race car that people probably won't race, but it is there. I wouldn't probably not race it personally. If I won it, I would probably be on some sort of display from personally myself, but it is 100% ready to go minus a controller.
Honestly, I feel like there's something inherently wrong with running this because it's so special.
Like I said, I personally wouldn't be running it.
Yeah, I mean,
but it is built to perfection for running.
I think what I said to Beef Friday night, because the joke is like, I don't run dirt. Like if I won the raffle, like it would go on a shelf next to the YZ2 DTM that I'm gonna build. That was a serialized car too. But it's like the only person in the world that can have a Mayfield built car whenever they want is Ryan Mayfield. So for anybody else, it's like put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then figure. I mean, maybe I don't know.
It's definitely one of those.
It's such a hard call.
It's like one of those dilemmas. You just like, it's like owning like a high-end Ferrari that looks so beautiful in the showroom, but it's built to run.
But are you right? Are you going to track it?
You don't want to beat it up.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to just look at it. So I don't know.
So here's my idea. Whoever wins this needs to figure out a way to ping Mayfield and be like, dude, what should I do with this?
Yo, I need another one.
And then no.
I need one to run.
But to like let him make the call and be like, you know what? If you want to run it, it should be run.
I feel like he's gonna say to run it.
Sure, he will.
Why wouldn't he?
I mean, what more baller move is there than showing up at your track at a Friday night, throwing down a car that was built by that dude?
I would simultaneously be happy and mad.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't know how to feel.
Like
it's like awesome that the car is like actually getting used, but it's getting all messed
It's
up.
like kicking a puppy.
I don't know, dude. Oh man. But regardless, it's super awesome that they did that, and we definitely wanted to talk about it on the show here.
Yep.
Shout out to all the sponsors here, and Bishop for reaching out to these guys on Beef's behalf for all that. It's June 18th is his race. It's shaping up to be a pretty cool event here. We got a lot of sponsors on board. I think, I know J Concepts and Horizon, Tekin, ProTech. I'm definitely missing some, but they're sending some stuff to further raffle off / giveaway at the event as well.
I wonder if it'll be a bigger race than like the barbecue blast and like some of like the other summer highlights. Like I'm really wondering because based on the amount of coverage that this has gotten, it really kind of makes me wonder.
I hope that it will be. I think the only thing maybe not having it quite as big is we're not running nitro, which would cut down on a few classes, but I think
because it's a one-day race.
Yeah, it's one-day race, and also we wanted to make sure Beef could stay to the end. That's why we didn't run the nitro.
That's true.
Because the nitro does take a lot of time in the day, and Beef just can't.
He can't be in the chair that long.
It can't be a 12-hour day for Beef, so that's why we did electric, so he can hopefully stay for the mains and stuff. That's why we're doing 2 rounds, the mains, and hopefully he can end up being able to stay the entire day. That was the idea for that. But yeah, should be a healthy turn. Even if, I mean, we're getting 70, 80 entries on a Friday night. So, I mean, just on a Friday night alone. So, I mean, this promoted Sunday race should be pretty solid.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
That'll be cool.
More the merrier. So we're just trying to raise a bunch of money for beef. That's the idea.
Yep.
So
it's that the current van is kind of like not ideal. He's looking for something that runs 10 seconds in the quarter mile.
Yeah, I just need something that scares him a little bit.
He wants to like Hellcat swap his current transport.
Yeah, it doesn't get him here fast enough.
So it's a good cause, guys.
It doesn't get him here fast enough is what it is.
It doesn't get him here fast enough.
Yeah. I don't really know, honestly, what the situation is with the car. It's just kind of what I heard. I don't think I'm making that up. I'm pretty sure I heard that, but regardless.
Yeah, I think he may have mentioned it in the podcast. So we did do a podcast going the past a couple of episodes, and you'll see us where we had beef on. We kind of talked about this, and you can just see what a genuine guy he is and how much he loves this hobby. If there's a dude that personifies the hobby, it's like Beef and Chris Marcy, and they can just kind of battle.
Yeah.
So.
But they like each other, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, not battle each other, like battle for the lead. I mean, they could fight him out, too.
I don't know how that would go. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's enough about this car. We had another car come across our table today, unexpectedly, which is also pretty awesome.
Almost as rare.
This guy in those ceramic bearings. Whoa. Like it's on ice. Yeah, so this came unexpectedly. Chris hit me up today, or came in today and said, I'm buying an RC10 today. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? I didn't think you meant RC10.
Is it like a B63?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why he was telling me, and I was like, okay, do whatever you want, you know? But then he said it was an original RC10. I said, oh, all right, that's interesting. And he did, in fact, pick it up, and it was sitting on our table when we came to shoot here, so I said, hey, we're going to talk about this, too.
Yeah, this thing deserves coverage.
Check this guys out. We got a original RC10 A-stamp chassis with the associated Reedy motor, as Tyler was explaining to me. He can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It does have a Futaba servo in it, but it's a little bit of a newer one, but other than that, it's
where newer is like 1994.
Yeah, I mean, old.
So we're grading on a curve.
Not as old as car, but still old. And pretty decent paint job, I'd say, on it.
And that's box art, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It even has the driver figure.
And it's super.
And the window nuts.
Super clean. It does have
those are plastic mesh window nuts.
So
it's not a sticker.
Pretty awesome that this came across, so we were checking that out. Tyler was telling me some fun facts about the motor there, so he can talk about that if you want.
Is that my cue?
Let's go for it. You're the motor guy.
All right, so a couple cool things about so this is what they would call an RC10. They didn't call it a B back then. It was just an RC10. This was the original Team Associated off-road car. This is what they call an A stamp car. So the chassis is aluminum, and then they anodize it. And I guess as they revised and iterated on the design, they went from the A revision to the B revision. So if you were ever lucky enough to stumble upon one of these at a yard sale or something, you're looking for the letter A stamped into the chassis. That means it's an earlier version. And apparently Chris was actually tuning me up on this. In the A stamp car, there was, I guess, super early ones that were made at the original Team Associated facility in California, and then there were later A stamp cars that were made, when they grew up and they got a bigger facility. So there's a whole bunch of nuance to it, but there's A stamp and then B stamp. If you look at, like what identifies the early cars, you can see they have these super kind of stubby, short front suspension arms. And then the rears are pretty narrow too. The later version of this car, like they had the World's car and they had a Championship Edition car, more or less they used the same chassis layout, but they went to a longer A-arm and just made the car more stable. Still has the aluminum shocks that they carried up into the mid-2010s. Like, it shows how good this original design was. But yeah, there's a ton to dig into on this.
I love these little knockoff wheel nuts.
Yeah.
And not by knockoff, I mean fake. I mean knockoff, like
turn off with you can screw them off with your fingers.
Like,
so if you look real close,
usually have them on like those fancy rims, and then they hit them with the hammer to knock them off.
Yeah.
They use like the lead hammer or whatever.
So what Tyler was talking about earlier, the motor in this is a team associated, what do they call it here? Stock motor. Okay, so this is a standard 27 turn stock motor that would have maybe come with the kit, or you would have ordered and put in the car for stock racing. This is the beginning of what was Reedy Electronics. Team Associated and Reedy were always kind of joined at the hip, mainly because of the relationship between Mike Reedy and Gene Husting, the owner of Team Associated. So for years, when I was in the hobby in the 90s, and probably a lot of people in the 80s too, you know, there's the Trinity Motors and then there's the Reedy Motors. And that's what was popular in the US. So you grow up with that and you see private label motors with their own, you know, Raven and East Coast Motors and all these other brands. Now that I started collecting motors, I'm coming to the realization that out of the dozens of brands you think exist, there's really 2 motor manufacturers back in the day. And it won't hone in on it, so I won't go crazy trying to get up close. But if you look at the end bell, it says Yokomo. So you really back then had Yokomo making motors and Trinity making motors, and then everybody imported them and put their own stickers on them. So Trinity and Yokomo were the OEM. Reedy was rebranding them and selling them in the US, and then you had US manufacturers that would just put their own sticker on a Trinity motor. So it's kind of funny retrospectively looking back on the hobby like that. And the same thing happens today. You've got a handful of companies in Japan or China that are actually manufacturing motors, and then everybody's getting their own can design or sticker or label or name or whatever put on them. There's really very few companies that are doing their own R&D. So it's kind of a look under the covers.
Not much has changed.
No. But, so like we were talking about earlier, what has changed a ton, and I'll try to get in tight here. So if you look at what would be on a modern car, the spur gear, the slipper clutch assembly, this, there we go, looks a lot more like a ball diff. And it should, because it is. On the original cars, before Associated came out with what they called the Stealth transmission, which is essentially the granddaddy of our modern 3-gear trans, they had this transmission, and it doesn't even have like a sexy name. It's just the 6-gear transmission. So your differential is on the outside of the trans, and it would still have a plastic gear cover on it. But then the transmission itself is a lot wider than what we're used to, because inside it, on your out drives, you had 2 gears, and then above it, where you'd normally have just one idler, you had another 2 gears, and then above it, where your input shaft would be, you had another 2 gears, and they were connected to the diff. So in the box, you've got 6 gears, and then the diff is on the outside. It's weird.
It's weird, but apparently effective.
Yeah, they ran it that way for a long time. And it's this is where I geek out, because like Moore's Ideal Products, MIP, Eustace, I think his first name is Eustace. Eustace Moore came out with a 3-gear transmission for this car. It was a black case, and it was all metal gears, and it had a ball diff, and it moved it down into where we normally look for the differential to be. And that was like one of the first hardcore hop-ups to this car. MIP also made a 4-wheel drive conversion. And if you watch, there's a video on YouTube chronicling the history of the 4-wheel drive Associated cars when the B64 came out. It's like a 30-minute video. And they talk about how when MIP did their conversion, they had to put a gearbox in the front. It makes sense. But you can't really run a belt here because that's where your battery is. So what they ended up doing was they got a kind of like a weed whacker flexible drive, like a
flex shaft?
A flex shaft, thank you. And they screwed it to the side of the chassis. They ran it around the outside of the chassis into the side of the transmission in the front, and then it keyed into the side of the transmission in the rear. And that was the earliest. So his comment in the video was that it was very inefficient which make sense, so. Right? It's a lot of drag. You're flexing this shaft and wasting energy. But he basically said, he goes, but when it worked well. So they probably had iterations to get the reliability up and stuff. But that was the origins of the associated four-wheel drive. That was this car.
Oh, they made this one four-wheel.
They put a gearbox in the front. They changed the front tires, and I forget what they called it. There was a name for it. It was like the MIP Pro 4 mod or something like that.
That'd be a nice one to find.
Big money.
I would imagine
Big money.
I would imagine so.
And then later on, they did a belt drive with the later versions of this car. And eventually, what gave rise to the B44 series was Jason Rona, in the infancy of J Concepts. They came out with the BJ40, the BJ4.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Which was essentially an associated touring car with longer arms and longer shocks, and Associated bought the design and they started making the B44. So it's crazy how this car was the kernel for not just the two-wheel program, but the four-wheel program too.
This car sparked a lot.
It did. It's such a cool piece. So
I feel like we're on like Antique Roadshow, but RC Car Edition. So
yeah.
So Tyler, what's it worth? Today at market.
I don't play that game. I know what I'm willing to pay for stuff, and it's usually not what it's worth.
I'll sell it to the viewers for $5,000.
This is going to the Chris Marcy Mausoleum. So
yeah, we'll have it here in the shop on display, so you guys can check it out.
That's such a cool piece.
And for the right amount of millions, I'm sure Chris will sell it.
I mean, he is a businessman at the core.
But
no, that's an awesome car. So yeah,
it's not very often Chris goes out of his way to buy an RC car, so it's definitely special for him.
Well, and then this car even kind of predates Madness, because this came out in like 83, 84, 85. So a couple years before he really dove into the business. So
yeah.
I didn't get to ask him if he ever had one, but
I'm sure he's played with a few of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2023 and he's still buying them, so yeah. I mean,
you never have to grow out of the hobby.
You never have to.
Yeah, so when I walked in here, I saw the Tekno, the Mayfield car, which I was dying to see, because why wouldn't you? And then sitting next to it is this thing. I almost collapsed. I almost had a coronary. I'm like, that's too cool.
I mean, not for nothing. I mean, I understand that's 8 scale and this is 10 scale, but I don't even know, was there even 8 scale when this was? Maybe? I don't even know.
I think there were 8th scale, like Associated's first, literally, like their earliest cars, their first cars were, I think, 8th scale on-road gas cars. Like they had the RC 500, I think. That might have been their first car. So there was 8th scale, but there was 8th scale did not exist until nitro became accessible. Electric 8th scale did not exist, period, because you just couldn't get the power density.
So, I mean, not for nothing, little apples and oranges, but 1985 and 2023. See how things have changed quite a bit. I mean,
40 years.
Pretty insane. I know this is obviously a 10 scale, but I mean, even comparing, the 10 scale is, a similar setup, honestly. Their Tekno 10 scale is similar setup. But even a modern B64 is leaps and bounds different than this thing. Yeah. It's pretty insane how far technology has come, and see where it is at in 20 years from now. It's just going to be pretty insane.
Yeah.
Batteries will last 4 days, and motors won't get hot.
And people still complain about runtime.
We'll all have hoverboards and fancy shoes.
Your jacket is dry.
But anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out and come to the beef race. Raffling this puppy off. It's a beautiful build. And then for the rest of you guys, we'll have this on display here at the shop. Come check that out too. It's definitely a cool thing to reminisce about. I'm sure Chris would like talking about it. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Later.